Hey, Earthlings of the world. So, what does veganism mean? What does it mean to be vegan, to adhere to the philosophy of veganism? Now, in some senses, it's a bit sad that we have to keep returning to this in the 21st century, really, in the sense that veganism, as a philosophical view, was set down in the 1940s through to the 1950s. By 1955, certainly, with the work of Leslie Cross, earlier than that, with the work of Donald Watson and others, and reiterated since right up to, the 1970s, I guess. And then we've got the common definition of veganism from the Vegan Society, which is fairly weak compared with some of the earlier statements by the people who actually started the vegan social movement. So I was kind of asked to comment on a contribution to Unlearning Speciesist Language, which is a Facebook group. And in that, I need my eyes for this bit from now on. In that, someone was making the kind of common claim now that veganism is only about other animals. And of course, this is a bit of a reducitarian view of it. They said, for example, I'll just bring this up on the screen, particularly within the issue of his vegan magazine, you're talking about Donald Watson, from 1946. Follow the link, and there was a link below, to see how veganism was established entirely for the rights and lives of non-human animals. And to suggest that it was for anything else is a misappropriation. Now, this in itself is a mistake. And so I'm going to show you the issue of the vegan in mind. Don't worry, I can zoom in on this to show you what it is. So this is one of the early magazines, The Vegan, as you see, volume 2, number 1, spring 1946. So we talked about early days of the vegan social movement. And in this, there is this editorial, and this is called The Case for Veganism, and it's written by Donald Watson. So this is a bit tricky to get to, but here we go. So Watson is saying that it's a printed magazine now instead of this kind of Gestetner type thing that he used to do, and so it's a good time to restate the case for veganism. And you'll see there in the second sentence, in earlier issues, evidence was given to suggest that the whole question of man's, they always talked in those, in that kind of sexist language at the time, humanity's relationship with other animals is ripe for review, both in the interests of animals and of ourselves. Okay, and so that's what the work of the Vegan Society is all about. Now, this is not just a one-off, but it's in the first paragraph. That veganism is about the liberation, the emancipation, the freedom of other animals and of humanity. Donald Watson said very clearly that the vegan movement was probably the only one that could save humanity. He actually said that. He talks about other movements sometimes as lesser movements, that veganism was a kind of overarching philosophical idea about justice and nonviolence, this kind of thing. We have to remember that the Vegan Society, the vegan social movement, was started, and the word vegan came into being during the Second World War, the last years of this global conflict. So the vegans declared peace during wartime, which is a radical thing to do. But they made it clear that they believed that veganism was part and parcel of the moral evolution of humanity. And that means that through a vegan mindset and a vegan world, then other animals would be liberated, but so would we as well as a species. So that's always been the case. So Watson is stating this here. If you see in this this little clip here from a later letter that Watson sent to his friend Arthur Ling, who started the Plant Mill Society and all the plant milk revolution, if you like. Watson is saying, but by definition, veganism is about helping both humans and other animals. He's kind of saying, and there's a kind of reason for this, he's kind of saying that, the Vegan Society has got to kind of make sure it fulfills that that desire, that aspiration of the definition. And really that's kind of part of the fact that over time, the Vegan Society is kind of moderated a little bit, and that's a sad thing as far as I'm concerned. And so Watson warned against that in his later years, and he wanted new vegans. He actually said things like he wants new vegans to realize that they've joined something big, something very powerful, something very radical. He used those kind of phrases and ideas. So the case for veganism. So if we move to the next page, again, I'll zoom into the right part. And here he's talking about a Mr. Oldham. And he talks about Mr. Oldham twice. And he says, well might Mr. Oldham, writing in a recent Christian newsletter, ask, among the 1,000 questions which perplex and baffle us, is there some critical issue which, if rightly understood and rightly dealt with, it's a really bad punctuation on this, which would mark the turning point in our society from sickness to health? In the confusing complexity of life today, is there one deciding point at which a change, if it were to come about, would be so fundamental as to mark off one period of history from another? That's the question from Mr. Oldham, and Watson says veganism has something to offer in answer to this question. This big question, veganism, as far as the pioneers of the vegan social movement, was central to answering this kind of fundamental question. Because essentially what they were trying to do in these early years, they were trying to work out why humanity had become so violent. They just lived through a global conflict. It wasn't that long since the First World War had ended. So that's two global conflicts in short order. They were trying to work out, how do we become so violent? They had learnt, not as history, but as real kind of news there and then, kind of hot off the shelf, if you like, about the concentration camps and about the Holocaust, these kind of things. It was quite shocking. There is some interesting sociology on that, in the sense that the brother of Max Weber, Alfred Weber or Albert Weber, can't quite remember, said that that this news that was coming through piping hot, as he called it, and it was a shock. It's difficult for us now with 24-hour news to consider the absolute shock that people were in when they were getting daily updates about warfare and deaths, concentration camps, Holocaust, the things that are going on, being served up piping hot, he said. And this is what the pioneers of our movement also experienced. They were learning about this global atrocity kind of firsthand, right there and then. It wasn't just a history thing. It wasn't a Hollywood movie. It was their life right then. So they were trying to work out what the hell had gone on with humanity? Why were we so violent? And they came to the conclusion that veganism was part of the solution. In fact, a major part, and for Watson, could be the most large part of the solution, if you like. And that's what he said. Veganism was something to offer in answer to this question. Let me flip to the end now of... oh, there we go. So we've now got Watson talking about Mr. Oldham again. And this is in context of economic advantages about veganism, but again, basically saying that there's a big problem. When you've got a big problem, you need a big idea, and the big idea is veganism, because veganism would get us to the state where we'd have abundant, health-giving food. Okay, and that would get us out of a real big problem. So this is a bit of a kind of manifesto of veganism from Watson, 1946. but he's reiterating that a lot of it is about helping human beings. There's nothing controversial or wrong about this. It was never just about the other animals. It was never about that. Here's an interesting thing. If we go to this page here, this is quite progressive, really, because here Watson is talking about progressive diseases in animals, other animals, and talking about, will there be a second Black Death? I mean, in terms of what we're going through now, this is very prophetic. This entire document, this Vegan Society magazine, as in all of them actually, are available through that thing called Issuu, ISUU. If you go into there and then you put in the search the vegan and then put the date, you'll get all the vegan magazines. It's not true to claim that veganism is only about the rights of other animals. That is not the case and never has been the case. It's always been wider than that. It's been understood as that for many decades now. It's only at the moment that we have a bit of a push going on to reduce veganism to something else. Some people want to try and make it seem like a diet. Other people seem to be wanting to, I don't know, make it this kind of animals only thing. So vegan for the animals is a big slogan in the movement. And in some senses, it's kind of right and wrong. See, the focus of veganism is our relations with the other animals. The scope of veganism is wider. The pioneers always kind of talked about both kind of at the same time. Sometimes the language is, it doesn't kind of, they weren't into sound bites. It didn't kind of punch you, in between the eyes. So you've got to do a little bit of reading in that sense. But it's certainly wrong to suggest that editorial is saying that veganism is about other animals only. It certainly doesn't. It says the opposite of that, in the same way as the pioneers have always said the opposite of that. Veganism is about liberation. It's about the liberation of other animals, and it's about the liberation of ourselves. And it's also about saving the planet. There's no kind of problem here. This is exactly what the people who started our movement felt that veganism was. So let's not reduce it. If people tell you that it's just this reducitarian version, they're not telling you the truth. Reject it. Veganism is a great idea. It's a big idea. And we probably need the expansive vision of veganism more than ever now. So let's not just throw it away because you've got some animals only people in the movement that for whatever reason, and those reasons are liable to be quite varied and quite political as well, whatever reason, they're trying to slim down the meaning of veganism. And that is not right. We need to keep the expansive radical view, the revolutionary view of veganism, the liberation of all, justice for all. That sums up veganism. It's a justice for all movement. Okay, Earthlings, I will see you again, no doubt. Bye now.